Hi everyone. Um, as it's Mental Health Awareness Week, I thought I'd make a video, and rather than making it an advice video as I've done in the past, I thought I'd talk a bit about my own personal experiences with mental health problems, and hopefully someone will find it helpful or can identify with it in some way. Um, Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I have bipolar disorder. I've been diagnosed for about 2 years now. And I think my problem started when I was about 12 or 13. And it's quite common when you go into adolescence that it can kind of kickstart problems that were dormant before. And that's what happened in my case. I had extreme mood swings. And, of course, everyone thought, it's just being a teenager. But I think I was aware that what I was going through was different from usual teenage crap. Um, I would get very, very depressed and very angry, but then I would be fine, the next week. And um, I found it very hard to make friends because, I mean, obviously, when you're behaving like that, people might not necessarily want to be around you. And also because I was frightened of it. I knew that there was something wrong with me, and I was frightened in case anyone found out. So, I didn't talk about it to anyone. And I was incredibly sort of uptight and tense all the time. And so I was always sort of on the outside of any group I was part of, and I never really had close friends for very long. And of course, that made me feel even worse about myself. Um, and it wasn't really until I started at university that I thought, okay, maybe it's time to deal with this and actually face up to what is going on because it's getting a bit ridiculous at this point. So, I mean, I just saw various counsellors through my university who helped to a certain extent, but because they were, you know, through university, I could only have a couple of appointments. And so I still had this sort of overbearing control on myself because again I didn't want to. I felt like if I gave into it then I would just completely lose it, and goodness knows what I would do. So I was just sort of very not exactly shy but wary, and I wasn't comfortable sort of giving much of myself to anyone. um, but obviously the problems persisted, and when I finished my undergraduate course and I was working for a while, my mum finally persuaded me to actually go to a doctor and deal with it. And that was when I was diagnosed with depression. Started on Prozac, which is often quite bad for people who are bipolar, as it turns out, and myself included. I was essentially manic for about 10 months. And if you've ever been manic or been around someone with bipolar disorder who's going through a manic stage, you can understand that several months of that non-stop is not good to deal with for anyone concerned. And then inevitably I crashed and was more depressed than I think I've ever been. And it was awful. It was the worst experience of my life. And I almost, well, I gave up hope, and none of the doctors I spoke to were helpful. It was just, I thought that there was no way out. And the only thing that kept me going was a sense of duty to my family because I didn't want to hurt them. Um, I was actually going through one of my old journals that I kept at the time, and I found a passage that is, well, it's quite upsetting, but at the same time, it makes me realise how far I've come since then. And so I thought I would just share it with you. Um, this was about 2 years ago. Um, I just want to go somewhere by myself and die. I want it over because it's never going to stop. I don't want to die. I want to live my life like I should. I hate being this way and I want someone to save me, but I don't think anyone can. I'm rapidly losing all hope that anything is going to help. I'm afraid that I'll be this horrible person forever. There isn't anything out there capable of saving me. Oh, please let everyone stop loving me. Please let everyone stop caring, because then I can die without guilt. And yeah, that's what it was like. I almost came to resent the people who cared about me because it was only for them that I was staying alive. It wasn't for me. I had nothing to gain from it at that time. I wanted out so badly, but it was that sense of obligation that kept me going. And obviously, I'm incredibly grateful for it now. But at the time, I wanted to have no one, and then I would be free to, yeah. Um, so the funny thing is that at the time, from an outsider's point of view, I was doing great. I'd recently started a PhD. I was supporting myself, living alone. Um, and yeah, I mean, it seemed like I was doing great. And that's what doctors would say when I went to them for help. They'd say, well, you know, you're doing this PhD, you must be fine. But it was just this sense of duty that I have to do this, otherwise I'll let people down. And I have to appear to be functional because I don't want people to worry about me. But I wasn't functional. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating properly. I was drinking a lot. I would sometimes not leave my flat for days on end because I couldn't cope with being around people. I wasn't coping. And it was very, very hard to get doctors to recognise that. Um, but I did eventually find a good doctor, um, and they are out there, and she was very helpful. She got me an appointment with a psychiatrist, and eventually I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, um, which means it's, rather than straightforward depression, it's more like a pendulum. And there are two extremes. There's the depressive extreme, and then there's the manic extreme, where you're sort of almost hyperactive and complete lack of focus mostly, and very outgoing and bubbly and happy. And then there's the opposite, which is, you know, bipolar. It's the two opposites. Um, and so they put me on mood stabilizers, which sort of leveled me out quite a bit, and antidepressants as well, which I'm still taking now, and they've been really, really good. I mean, I still get the mood swings, but it's nowhere near as extreme as it was. I haven't had any really black depressions, and I haven't had any really irresponsible manic phases in a long time, which is great. Um, I also underwent a course of cognitive behavioural therapy, which was really, really good, and I would recommend to anyone suffering from a chronic mental illness. Um, and yeah, right now I'm doing really well. I'm coming to the end of my PhD now, and I'm I've made some really good friends. And it's funny, now I've started talking about my mental health problems to people, I've sort of been able to make those connections and able to sort of open up. And I used to be like a clenched fist, and I'm not anymore. And I think that's the main thing that I've gained from talking about my problems. And yeah, I mean, I know that this is something that I will be dealing with for the rest of my life, and it's okay. I'm okay with it. Um, it's just something that I have to cope with. It's an illness that I have, and I will deal with it. I have the ammunition now, and even if my medication doesn't help forever, which, you know, it most likely won't, I feel now that having gone through this, I'm that much stronger, and I know that I can do it. I know how strong I am, And it kind of reminds me of Dante's Inferno, you know, the sign over the gates of hell, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. And that's what depression is, it's the complete absence of hope. And so if you've gone through a severe depression, then you have essentially gone through hell and come out the other side. And it's really quite empowering. And I don't know, I mean, I feel now that I can cope with almost anything. Like, I used to be really scared of spiders, but now I'm not. I'm like the designated spider catcher. I'm just, I don't worry about the things that I used to, and I'm not frightened of things that I don't need to be frightened of, because I've gone to war with something in my own head that was trying to kill me. It's like being in an abusive relationship, but you can't leave and you can't get a restraining order because you're there. And I think that's why, one of the reasons why depressive people tend to suicide, because they don't want to kill themselves, they want to kill that monster in their head that is making them so unhappy. And but obviously you can't get rid of one without the other, um, that way anyway. um, so yeah, I mean, I'll always have my head monster, but right now it's locked up in the closet and I've padlocked the door, and I'm building up my munition supply, and I'm going to keep fighting. And I'm really proud of myself, and I'm proud of anyone who's gone through similar experiences, because you are incredibly strong and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Um, so yeah, that is my story. And if anyone has any questions or wants to share their experiences, please feel free. And yeah, that's it. I'm really awkward about ending videos, so I'm just going to say bye now.